They had labeled my chair with a sign that said family made, and everyone laughed when I saw it. That was the moment I knew deep down I wasn't truly part of this family. Not really. To them, I was just the help. The joke. The one who cooked the meals, cleaned up afterward, and stayed out of the spotlight. I wasn't treated like an actual family member. I was just someone who made things easier for them. And while everyone around the table laughed, my mother-in-law smiled sweetly at me like she hadn't just humiliated me in front of the whole family. That's when something inside me shifted. I knew things couldn't go on like this. Something had to change. I didn't know it then, but justice was already on its way, wearing a suit and carrying a legal notice. But before I tell you what happened next, let me take you back to the moment everything fell into place. The house was filled with fake holiday happiness. Soft jazz music played in the background, and the smell of turkey, nutmeg, and cinnamon floated through the air. On the outside, it all looked perfect. But inside, I felt that familiar pressure in my chest. That heavy feeling I always got when I was around Olivia, my mother-in-law. I had just walked in, carrying 2 freshly baked pecan pies. They were still warm, and I could feel the heat through the foil. My hands trembled a little, but I told myself it was just because of the cold weather, or maybe the nerves. I never arrived empty-handed. Never. In fact, I had cooked at least half of the dishes on the table. But none of that seemed to matter to them. Then I saw it. My usual chair at the end of the long, perfectly decorated table. It was the seat nearest the kitchen, easy for me to hop up and fetch anything people needed. But this time, something was different. A shiny satin ribbon was tied to the back, and on the front, a big sign was taped to the chair. In thick, bold black letters it read, "Family Made." I froze for a moment, confused. Maybe it wasn't meant for me. Maybe it was some sort of silly Thanksgiving joke. But then Olivia's voice filled the room. "Oh, Lauren," she called out, pretending to be surprised. "Look, we saved your seat. Don't worry, you'll still be serving, just like always." She threw her head back and laughed loudly, like she'd just made the funniest joke in the world. The others joined in. Her sister Nicole rolled her eyes and giggled. Emma, the other sister, gave a tight smile, but didn't say a word. Even my husband Scott glanced up from his phone, smirked, then quickly looked away. That was the moment I knew I'd had enough. And soon they would realize that too. I just stood there, holding the pies. My hands were shaking, and I could feel my face getting hot. But it wasn't anger, at least not at first. It was something worse.
Shame.
That deep, painful feeling that rises up your spine and makes you feel small. I didn't know what to say. My mouth tried to smile, but I think it came out more like a twitch. My whole body felt frozen. My heart was beating so loud I could barely hear anything else. Inside, I was screaming. Why would they do this to me? Why would he let them treat me like this again? I looked at Scott, my husband, but he didn't look back. He stared at his phone, pretending he didn't see anything. Pretending this wasn't happening. Pretending his mother hadn't embarrassed me in front of everyone again. I took a deep breath and swallowed the lump in my throat. Then slowly I started walking toward the table. My legs felt like they were made of jelly. The pies in my arms were still warm, and the heat was starting to sting my skin. But I didn't mind. That warmth reminded me that I was still here, still standing. I placed the pies gently on the sideboard, trying to act normal, even though I felt broken inside. As I turned back toward the table, I felt a small vibration in my pocket. 3 short buzzes. A message. With shaky hands, I pulled out my phone. My heart was still racing as I looked at the screen. It was a message from my son, Adam. He's 25 now. My rock. My reason to keep going. The text was short. Only 3 words. "We're coming in." I stared at the message, confused at first. What did he mean? Was he already outside? Was someone with him? I didn't know. But something in my gut told me things were about to change. Earlier that morning, I had told myself I could handle it. "Just one more Thanksgiving," I whispered while getting ready. I had said the same thing every year, like it would make it easier. Like it would protect me. I woke up at 4 a.m., just like always. Quietly slipped out of bed, so I wouldn't disturb Scott. Not that he would have noticed, he had checked out emotionally a long time ago. Probably still buried in his work emails or sports updates. The kitchen was freezing. I wrapped my robe tightly around me and got started. The first thing I made was my grandmother's stuffing. Her recipe. The one I memorized after she passed away. As the onions and sage cooked, the smell filled the kitchen. It should have made me feel warm, safe. But it didn't. That tight feeling in my chest came back. That same nervous energy I always felt whenever Olivia, my mother-in-law, was around. And this year, like every other year, I was expected to smile through it. But this time, something was different. I kept looking at the clock. I only had 3 hours left. I needed to finish baking the pies, chill Adam's favorite cranberry compote, and also make sure Scott had ironed a shirt. Of course, he wouldn't think to do it himself. As I rushed around the kitchen, I could feel the tension building in my body. My shoulders were tight, and my jaw ached from clenching it. I kept telling myself, maybe this year will be different. Maybe Olivia, my mother-in-law, would be kind. Maybe Nicole wouldn't say one of her usual rude jokes disguised as a compliment. Maybe, just maybe, someone would notice how much work I had put into this meal. All the hours of cooking, cleaning, and planning. But deep down, I already knew better. Around 10 a.m., Scott finally wandered into the kitchen. He yawned, shirtless, scratching his head like he was the star of some lazy sitcom. "Smells good," he mumbled, grabbing a slice of bread from the counter. "You almost done?" he asked. "Almost," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Just need to get the pies in the oven." He kissed my cheek without even looking at me, then walked away down the hall. No offer to help. No words of appreciation. Just silence. That same silence we had both gotten used to over the last few years. It had become our normal. A quiet house full of unspoken things. As I rolled out the pie crust, my hands moved like they had done it 100 times, which they had. But my mind wasn't in the kitchen anymore. I was thinking about Adam. He had called me just a few nights ago. "Mom," he said, "you don't have to go this year. You know that, right? You don't owe them anything." I had laughed, trying to sound fine. I told him it was okay. That I didn't want to make a big deal, or cause any drama. That it was better to keep the peace. But Adam had gone quiet. Then he said something I couldn't forget. "Peace isn't real peace if it costs you your dignity." I didn't say anything at the time, but his words stayed with me. He was right. I had been mixing up silence with strength. I thought putting up with everything was a form of grace. But every year I lost a little more of myself just to be allowed to sit at their table. After packing up the food and loading everything into the car, I stood in the driveway for a full minute before getting in. My hands were cold as I held the steering wheel. My stomach was twisted with nerves. I wasn't scared of Olivia, not really. I was scared of what I had been avoiding for years. The truth. The truth that maybe, just maybe, I was never really welcome at all. I had never truly been welcome, not really. The ride to Olivia's house was silent. Scott sat next to me, typing away on his phone the entire time, barely saying a word. I stared out the window, watching dead leaves swirl across the empty road. The sky was gray and heavy, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something bad to happen. As we pulled into Olivia's driveway, I was already preparing myself. I had practiced my fake smile in my head. I reminded myself to be polite, quiet, and helpful, like always. To blend into the background, stay invisible, and not cause any problems. But what I didn't know was that Olivia had something planned for me that day. This time, she wasn't going to ignore me like usual. No, this time she wanted to humiliate me. And even she wasn't ready for what was coming next. I wish I could say I was shocked. But deep down, I wasn't. The moment I walked into the dining room and saw the sign taped to the back of my chair, a piece of me sank. It was written in big black letters. Family made. The same words they all used to mock me, to remind me I wasn't one of them. The pies I was carrying were still warm in my hands, but suddenly, my fingers felt cold. My chest tightened, like someone had wrapped a rope around it and pulled hard. I stood there, frozen. I didn't want to believe it was for me. I told myself maybe it was a mistake. But then Olivia turned around, and her eyes lit up when she saw me. She had been waiting for this moment. "Oh, Lauren," she said in her sweet, fake voice. "We saved your usual seat." Then she added with a big smile and a loud voice so everyone could hear, "Don't worry. You'll still be serving, just like always." The room filled with laughter. But it wasn't warm or kind. It was the kind of laughter that cuts you like tiny knives hidden behind smiles. Nicole laughed so hard, she had to cover her mouth with a napkin. Emma gave a small, polite chuckle, but quickly looked away, clearly uncomfortable. She couldn't even look me in the eye. And Scott, my own husband, looked at the chair, then at me, then back at his phone. He didn't say anything. Not a single word. I stood there, holding both pies, my face burning. I tried to smile, but I couldn't. My throat felt tight. My jaw hurt from clenching. My eyes stung with tears I refused to let fall. Not in front of them. Not again. I told myself to move. Just walk to the kitchen.
Put the pies down.
Pretend like it didn't hurt. But my legs wouldn't move. My mind screamed. Why? Why do they treat me like this every year? And I knew the answer. Because I let them. I always showed up early and stayed late. I was the one who cooked, cleaned, and smiled through everything while they barely noticed me. They treated me like I was just part of the background. I never truly stood up for myself. Not really. And Scott, my husband, never stood up for me either. They didn't respect me because no one ever made them. I had allowed it year after year. And now they had turned me into a joke. A label. Just a punchline taped to a chair. "Oh, come on. It's just a bit of fun," Olivia said sweetly, her voice full of fake kindness. "You know how much we appreciate you." I looked at her. This time, I didn't look away. I really looked at her. The perfectly ironed blouse, the neat pearl necklace, the way she held her head high like she was better than everyone else. And in that moment, something hit me hard. She didn't see me as part of the family. She never had. To her, I was just useful, easy to manage, good for doing the work no one else wanted to do, but never truly equal. Without saying a word, I turned around and walked to the kitchen. My arms felt heavy, my body stiff. Behind me, I heard a few soft laughs, a chair scraping across the floor, glasses clinking, but it all felt far away. My heart was beating so loudly that everything else seemed quiet. I set the pies on the counter and leaned against it, staring out the kitchen window. The backyard looked gray and lifeless. Bare tree branches moved slightly in the wind. I felt hollow, like something had been taken from me. Then my phone buzzed again. I pulled it from my pocket, thinking it might be a spam message, or maybe Adam saying he'd be late. But it wasn't that. Be there in 11. My hands started shaking. My breath caught. He was coming. And he wasn't coming alone. For the first time that day, something broke through all the shame and anger that had been building inside me. Hope. I stared at the message like it was a rope pulling me out of deep water. 10 minutes. I just had to stay calm for 10 more minutes. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, stood up straight, and took a deep breath. My skin still felt hot, my chest still tight, but something inside me had changed. A quiet voice was growing stronger. Not angry. Just done. I walked back into the dining room. Everyone was seated. The family maid sign still hung on the back of my chair like a proud little joke. I reached for it calmly. "Let me take that down," Olivia offered sweetly, pretending to be helpful now that the joke had landed. "No need," I replied. My voice was steady, even stronger than I felt. I folded the sign in half and placed it gently on the sideboard. Olivia watched me, her smile slipping just a little, like she didn't know what I was going to do next. I sat in the chair, the one they had labeled, not because I accepted it, but because I was about to change everything. I sat down in that chair, not because I accepted the label they gave me, but because it was mine. I was taking it back, reclaiming my place. I could feel their eyes glancing at me. They noticed something was different, but they didn't understand what had changed. I gave a small, quiet smile. I didn't say a word. Scott was still glued to his phone, scrolling like nothing had happened. Or maybe pretending not to notice, like always. He finally looked up when I reached for my glass of water. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low and unsure. I looked him straight in the eyes. "I'm fine." He nodded quickly, relieved that I didn't seem angry. He never liked uncomfortable moments. He avoided arguments or anything that made him face the truth, especially when it came from me. But I wasn't there to start a fight. I was there to finish something. You see, a few nights before Thanksgiving, I had finally opened up to Adam, my son. We were talking on the phone, just catching up, when something inside me broke. I told him everything. About the years of small, mean comments. About the so-called jokes that were never funny. About all the hard work I did that no one ever thanked me for, but always expected. I told him about last Thanksgiving too. How Olivia said there wasn't enough room at the table and made me eat at the kitchen counter while everyone else toasted pumpkin pie and laughed together. There was a long silence. Then Adam spoke. "You know this isn't normal, right?" "I'm used to it," I replied. "Mom," he said quietly, "just because you're used to it doesn't mean you should have to deal with it." His voice was calm but serious. I recognized that tone.
It meant he was about to do something.
He told me about his internship at a small law firm. They helped women who faced emotional abuse, not the kind that leaves bruises, but the kind that slowly makes you feel invisible. He told me his mentor, Larry, had handled cases like mine, where women were tired of being pushed aside, dismissed, and ignored. Women who finally said, "Enough." I laughed at first. What am I supposed to do? Sue them for being mean? But he didn't laugh. "No," he said, "but we can send them a legal notice. A boundary." That word, boundary, stayed with me. So, we planned. With Larry's help, we wrote a cease and desist letter. It wasn't a lawsuit, just a clear message. A line drawn. A legal and emotional statement saying, "I matter. My time matters. My feelings matter." And now they were almost here. The sounds around me, forks clinking, forced laughter, wine being poured, faded into the background. I sat in the same chair they had mocked me with. But I didn't feel weak. I felt strong. Then there was a knock on the door. Soft, but it echoed like thunder. Everyone froze. Olivia stopped mid-sentence, clutching the gravy boat like it suddenly weighed too much. Nicole's laugh died off awkwardly. Scott looked toward the hallway, confused. Something was coming. And for once, I wasn't the one who should be afraid. I didn't move at first. My heart was beating hard in my chest, but the rest of me felt calm and clear. Then came a second knock, louder this time. "I'll get it," I said, standing up. Scott looked surprised. "You don't have to." But I was already walking down the hallway. Each step felt like I was letting go of the past. Letting go of all the times I stayed quiet. All the times I was the helper, the peacemaker, the one who cooked and cleaned without thanks. That version of me was gone. I opened the door. There was Adam, standing tall and serious in a dark jacket I didn't recognize. His face looked strong, but his eyes softened when he saw me. Right behind him was Larry, wearing a gray suit and holding a folder. He looked calm and confident, the kind of confidence that makes people nervous.
"Hi, Mom," Adam said.
"Right on time," I whispered and stepped aside to let them in. Olivia was already at the end of the hallway. She stood with her hands on her hips, her smile stiff like she didn't know whether to act friendly or angry. "Adam, what a surprise," she said in a sweet fake voice. "You didn't say you were bringing someone." Adam gave her a small smile. "This is Larry. He's here for my mom." The room went quiet. Larry gave a polite nod. "Good afternoon. We're here to deliver a formal notice about the misuse of personal labor, emotional stress, and the ongoing expectation of unpaid work." Olivia blinked. "Excuse me?" Scott stood up. "What is this?" I stepped forward. "It's not a lawsuit," I said calmly, looking Olivia in the eyes. "It's a formal boundary. A cease and desist letter that explains what I will and will not continue to do in this family." Nicole rolled her eyes. "You've got to be kidding." "No," Larry said simply. He opened the folder and handed Olivia the document. "This explains all the work she's done over the years. Cooking, cleaning, planning holidays, organizing things, all without thanks or payment. It also says she won't take part in family events unless she's treated with respect. Emma finally spoke. "Lauren, why didn't you say anything?" "I did," I said, turning to her. "Just never with lawyers before." Scott looked shocked. "You brought legal stuff to Thanksgiving?" "No," I said quietly. "You did. The moment you sat there and let them embarrass me again." Olivia's face had gone pale. Her voice trembled. "It was just a joke." "No," I said. It was a pattern. For the first time in years, the room was truly silent. Not the fake, awkward silence. Real, heavy silence. I looked at the chair, the one with the folded sign, and something inside me felt lighter. Like I had finally put down a weight I'd been carrying for too long. Adam came and stood beside me, his hands in his pockets. He didn't say anything else. He didn't have to. Olivia clutched the papers like they were burning. "You're tearing this family apart," she whispered. I shook my head.
No.
"I'm saving myself from all of it." Then I turned around, walked past the table, and headed straight for the front door. Larry followed me, calm and professional. Adam looked at me, waiting. "You ready?" he asked. I nodded. I've been ready for years. The drive home was quiet, but not the uncomfortable kind of quiet. It was peaceful. Adam kept glancing over at me, like he was trying to figure out how I felt. I didn't say much. I was still thinking about everything that had just happened. I looked out the window, watching the trees pass by. The bare branches danced in the wind. And I thought to myself, I'm never going back there again. Not like that. When we reached my house, Adam walked me to the door. He looked at me like I might break down the moment I stepped inside. But I didn't. Instead, I poured myself a cup of tea, took off my shoes, and sat at my own kitchen table. My table. I let myself feel everything, not just the hurt, not just the anger, but the relief. It felt like a heavy weight had been taken off my shoulders. After all those years of keeping my mouth shut, I had finally said, enough. The next morning, I woke up late. I didn't clean up after anyone. I didn't fold anyone's laundry. I didn't cook a big meal for people who wouldn't even thank me. Instead, I made pancakes just for me, and I ate them in bed. It's strange how guilt can hide itself and pretend to be loyalty. For over 11 years, I believed I was keeping the peace by staying quiet. I thought I was strong for putting up with everything. I believed that being a good wife meant doing whatever made Scott's family happy, even if it made me miserable. But peace built on silence isn't real peace. It's like slowly erasing yourself. And loyalty? It's supposed to go both ways. Real loyalty includes respect. That evening, Scott sent me a text. Just a few words. That was unnecessary. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it. I didn't reply. We haven't talked much since. He moved into a hotel a few days later. I didn't ask where or why. I didn't need to. Deep down, I knew this had been coming for a long time. We had been drifting apart quietly for years. And the moment I stopped playing the role he liked, the quiet, helpful wife, everything changed. And honestly, that's okay. I'm done playing roles. Adam checks in on me every few days. He brought dinner over last weekend. He made lasagna. He burned the edges, but I loved it anyway. He smiled and said, "It's your turn to be taken care of now." I couldn't even speak. I just smiled back. I just hugged him and tried not to cry. Lately, I've started volunteering at a local women's center. Not because I know everything or have all the answers, but because I understand. I understand how easy it is to lose yourself, to become quiet, small, and agreeable until one day, you don't even recognize the woman looking back at you in the mirror. But now I do. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see someone who finally chose herself. Not out of anger, not for revenge, but because of truth and strength. Thanksgiving is different now. There are no crowded tables, no fake smiles, and no hurtful labels. Just peace. Real peace. Sometimes I think back to that chair, the one they labeled family made. And you know what? I smile. Because they were right about one thing. I did serve. I served meals, love, patience, and strength. But this year, I served something new. This year, I served boundaries. I served self-respect. And I served justice, cold, with a side of dignity. Thank you for listening to my story. If this touched your heart, if you've ever felt ignored, unappreciated, or invisible in your own family or relationship, please know this. You're not alone. You deserve better. You deserve love, respect, and peace. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is simply choose yourself. If you found this story moving or meaningful, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more true stories about strength, healing, and finding your voice. Until next time, stay strong, stay brave, and never forget your worth.